Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1968 crime drama thriller titled Bullitt. Now, Bullitt runs for 1 hour and 53 minutes long. It is directed by Peter Yates. It is produced by Philip D'Antoni. The script was written by Alan R. Trustman and Harry Kleiner, based off of the novel Mute Witness by Robert L. Fish. The score was done by Lilo Schifrin, the cinematography by William A. Fraker, and the editing was done by Frank P. Keller. And the stars of this movie are the King of Cool himself, Steve McQueen. We have the man from U.N.C.L.E. himself, Robert Vaughn. We also have Jacqueline Bisset, Don Gordon, Simon Oakland, Mr. Roper himself, Norman Fell. We have, of course, the always charismatic Robert Duvall, George Stanford-Brown, Felice Orlandi. We have Mel Sharples himself in this. Yes, I'm talking about Vic Tayback. We also have Pat Renalla and one of the great stuntmen in the olden days of theater, Bill Hickman. Now, I'm not a psychic, and I never ever claimed to be a psychic, but I do have a bold prediction into the near future. It may not be a surprise to some, but I feel that in 50 years' time, cars will no longer be dependent on petroleum resources, because petroleum and oil will be completely expunged. Instead, we will all be riding in hybrids, and the cars our ancestors have driven for centuries will be looked upon as an ancient relic. Movies like Bullitt will be viewed as a film of wonderment, like Steam was for people who admired Jules Verne. Steve McQueen will have a legacy similar to Captain Nemo as he cruises down the avenues in his gas-guzzling Ford Mustang. If you haven't seen Bullitt, now's your chance to marvel at the movie that became the spokesperson for the soon-to-be near end of the muscle cars. Now, even though this film is very iconic and can be dubbed as a classic, the plot of the story, believe it or not, is actually quite formulaic and not very original. In fact, if you want to see a good movie with a great story and an exciting car chase, I would recommend the previous movie that British director Peter Yates directed. And that was in 1967, and the movie was called Robbery. If you want to watch an old school movie with a great car chase, Robbery would be your choice. Or even William Friedkin's 1971 movie, The French Connection. That too also has a remarkable story, as well as some great exciting police action. This one was, I'm not going to necessarily say it was overrated, but it didn't really have very much to offer. And I think Friedkin actually outdid Peter Yates here. Maybe it's because Peter Yates probably does not seem to have that kind of feel that, Americans, they love their life on the fast lane. Well, this movie is very slow in pace. And I guess if you wanted to see more police crime action, you're not going to find any, because it's pretty much more drama than it is crime thriller. So maybe that might probably take a step back. And I'm not saying that it was entirely bad. I walk I didn't walk out of this movie feeling pissed off or anything like that. No. It's just that, I guess I think there's just better crime drama thrillers out there. This one didn't really have very much special to offer. So McQueen stars as Detective Frank Bullitt from San Francisco, and he was hired to protect a mobster by the name of Johnny Ross, played by Pat Renalla, who is willing to testify against an organization from Chicago. So while under Bullitt's custody, Ross is shot by a mysterious assailant and was left for dead. Fortunately, he had enough composure to stay alive, but his clock was ticking. So while in a comatose disposition, Ross survives the ordeal, and when word's caught on he lived through, at least for a brief moment, Bullitt uses kind of Ross as a decoy to capture the mobster's hiding quarters. However, constantly on his trail and constantly bickering and defying the level of competence within Frank Bullitt and the SFPD, a brash diplomat by the name of Walter Chalmers takes Ross's testimony as an opportunity to stepladder his way further into the political system, as he'll do anything possible to ruin Bullitt's reputation and to ruin the reputation of the San Francisco Police Department for their incompetence. He thinks that their incompetence is his one-way ticket to a higher position in the political system. Maybe a possible run for mayor or something like that. Or maybe I might even bat left field and say maybe a run for Senate. Why not? Anyways, this Walter Chalmers is a douchebag, an opportunistic, and he looks like just the kind of guy you just want to just take your fist and punch the screen for every time he comes on, because he's just such a despicable individual. But I have to kind of like hold back. So from there, Bullitt is now in the precarious situation as he's being interrogated by his superiors and is forced to answer the heavy questions about this whole investigation. So Bullitt, he has this hefty workload as he's chasing the bad guys while fending off against the system he's working for. If it ain't the San Francisco Police Department, it's Chalmers and the rest of his other yes men ass kissers. So with the exception being McQueen's Bullitt, most of the characters just don't stand out very well. In fact, they're pretty much mostly underdeveloped. Bullitt is probably like the only... this is pretty much Steve McQueen's carrying the heavy cargo. Most of these other characters are just stock background characters with really very little to almost non existent character development. And that's what probably makes this film lower than it should. I mean, practically the main antagonist, which is pretty much Walter Chalmers, he's pretty underdeveloped. And the other members of the police squad that Bullitt works for, they're all pretty underdeveloped too. And I think the most underdeveloped character in this is Jacqueline Bisset as Bullitt's girlfriend. She just seems padded on at the last minute. And the caper story behind the thick of things is told very vaguely and very, very complex in detail. But film fans will not remember Bullitt for the story, nor really for the characters for that moment. And for the record, the story, with the exception of maybe some scenes, for the most part, is not entirely engaging. But Bullitt has two idiosyncrasies that keeps this movie from remaining intriguing and remaining in interest. The first being that Steve McQueen truly personifies the anti-hero in his performance. He's the kind of guy who does not go around kissing ass. He goes out kicking ass. The other idiosyncrasy that makes this movie intriguing is probably one of the greatest car chases in cinematic history. You know, in today's crime drama movies, car chases, foot chases, fight scenes, they seem to just go on and on surreptitiously. Well, back in the 60s and 70s, car chases only came maybe in one or two scenes. Fight scenes in these crime dramas were like maybe only on at the most for maybe 5-10 minutes. And a lot of these crime drama movies, body counts maybe only about 4 or 5 at the most. And they're not like happening all at once. They seem to come in small, tiny fragments. And whereas it might be overwhelming by today's standards that in crime drama that everybody gets killed, good guys, bad guys, Samaritans, bystanders, these movies in the 60s and 70s, when someone gets killed or someone gets shot, it has a purpose. Not just this whole being at the wrong place at the wrong time thing. Not just the whole, even if you're innocent, you could still be killed. No. In most of the movies of this caliber, when somebody dies or gets killed or shot, it serves as a purpose. Although this is not, the greatest film that he's ever starred in, to me, I think Steve McQueen's best movies are The Great Escape. I, of course, dug The Magnificent Seven, even though he was trying to upstage Yul Brynner the whole way through. I liked The Sand Pebbles. That was a really good movie. Bullitt is the film that definitely, truly crowned Steve McQueen as the king of cool. From his bright blue eyes and his intense persona. This is the guy that every man dreams he wants to be. When he was in his prime, McQueen was untouchable, and in Bullitt, his charisma speaks louder than him. Granted, this film has very little in terms of dialogue, but McQueen's expressions are flawless and he succeeds in keeping it real. Plenty of actors try to emulate the coolness that McQueen has to offer, but in the end, McQueen is still the king. The eternally famous 9-minute heart-pulsing car chase scene has been inspired by other films that followed thereafter. The rapidly moving speed will definitely make your heart palpitate as it goes through non-stop without any of the jarring quick cuts or the shaky cams that today's action flicks seem to do, which makes them very, very annoying. Sadly, the chase scene is where the film's excitement stops. The rest of the film doesn't have the essential story structuring to carry through, which is a shame because the foot chase that ends the movie, plus the high impacted railroad airport sequence, still lacks, even though it should have came as something very, very climactic. But in the end, it just came out formulaic. So through the thick of things, oil may be running its course, and GM is currently at an upgrade. The days of halcyon inclined cars will become a thing of the past, but Bullitt's Ford Mustang will truly be a dinosaur in our industry. If ever the curious-minded youngster in our future wants to gasp at how our muscle cars work, then Bullitt's chase scene will likely quench your thirsty minds. It surely isn't the best thriller out there, but it is a landmark of the 60s due to its cool cars and McQueen's persona. So, I know it seems like I was basically doing what appeared to be a rant, but it wasn't like a rant like into saying that the movie was complete and utter garbage. Nothing at all like that. In fact, I consider this probably more like a guilty pleasure. But I wanted more of a guilty pleasure than just, a 9-minute exciting car chase with a very, very vague plot. I mean, there are still far more better crime thrillers out there. And like I said, like I threw out before, Robbery is a great one. The French Connection, that's a masterpiece. This one is nowhere close to a masterpiece. It's still a good watch, but it's not great. It could be just because of underdeveloped characters, a very narrow plot, and just very lacking in delivery by the performers, because a lot of them just don't really have very much to do in this movie. I don't mind the fact that this movie did not have a lot of dialogue because, sometimes in movies you don't need to have a lot of dialogue, but you do need a lot of heart. And the only character, and like I said, the only actor who really stands out in this movie was Steve McQueen's Frank Bullitt. And I'm not just saying that because he's the lead character, but it's because he's the only one who did stand out. Everybody else didn't. I'm not saying they sucked. They just didn't really have much airtime to grow onto us. So with that in mind, out of a scale of 10, I give Bullitt a 7. Now before I leave, I just want to tell you something about the movie Bullitt. It's actually very misleading name if you really want to know. Just because the character's name is Bullitt, there's only just one scene where he actually uses a gun. And there's only just one scene where there is gunfire. So there's really no shooting. But there is an exciting car chase, which leads to, the bad guys crashing their car into a gas station and just everything blows up. That's probably maybe the other death scenes. But like I said, there was no massive body count. But then again, the 60s were not about body counts or one constant car chase or one constant foot chase and a whole bunch of fight scenes all into 90 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes or longer, all stuffed in there. In the 60s and 70s, they had a lot of storytelling. I just wish the storytelling here was executed a little bit better. So it kind of only just slightly disappointed me. But it didn't deter my expectations. I just think it could have been done better. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember something. Be kind, be courteous, and please don't be rude. And I will do another movie review. So, until next time, this is Eric Correct Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.